I think the one thing you've got to ask yourself after seeing that South African performance versus Australia is, which is the real South Africa? Is it this one that took on the Aussie bowlers, an Aussie team that is being touted as title contenders? Is it this South Africa that has gone on to make their highest score in the World Cup so far? Or is it the South Africa of old, who of course we've got accustomed to seeing in this World Cup, not really doing much with the bat, not really putting a price on their wicket, but that was completely different today. This was a completely different South Africa. 50 overs gone, 325 on the board. Faf du Plessis getting 100 and Rassie van der Dussen very nearly getting a century to his name, getting out on 95. Quinton de Kock getting a brilliant start for South Africa with 52 to his name. Nathan Lyon has to be the pick of the Aussie bowlers, 2 wickets for him. Mitchell Starc getting 2 wickets as well. He was, of course, equaling Glenn McGrath's record in the World Cup. Lots more to talk about as well. You're watching ESPN Cricinfo Match Day, as we're, of course, looking back at those 50 overs by South Africa. South Africa, everyone must have felt so refreshed to see, especially someone if you're supporting the Indian cricket team, because now the game is really on and the pressure is on this team Australia if they are to get the maximum points to finish as leaders of the league stage. I'm joined in the studio by Ajit Agarkar and Dan Vettori. It's a crazy thing, right? Pressure off and a completely different team comes out to play, and the way they play, and
Yeah, I think the pressure was off a while back. It's just, I mean, I think it's the opening stand, isn't it? They haven't really had that sort of stand at the start. Australia perhaps not on top of the game after the short break, but South Africa really good. And then that partnership with Faf and Van der Dussen just, made sure that they capitalized on the start that de Kock and Markram provided them. Good pitch, maybe a little bit in it for the spinners, but South Africa really good, as you can see.
In a sense, of course, like Ajit just pointed out, great start by Markram and Quinton de Kock, but once those wickets went and you thought, okay, now the real test comes along, and then came the 150 run plus partnership between Faf and Van der Dussen.
And I think Faf fed off that opening partnership. He came out and he was aggressive, and when Faf plays that way, he's hard to stop. A lot of the times he probably plays conservative game and just gets himself in and builds, but I thought today he really fed off that partnership and allowed Van der Dussen to get in. He was a little bit slower at the start, but then you saw what good stroke makers they are at the end, and they could take on all bowlers. I think that's the key to Faf. There's no bowler that he can't take on. He plays pace well. He was one of the few guys who played line really well, and it was just a fantastic performance from their captain.
Albie, I'll throw the question to you. Is this the real South Africa?
That's certainly the performances I expected from the team throughout. Yes, I guess you can say that the World Cup pressure is off them and they can play with more freedom. But certainly, the team that took over is a very experienced team domestically. These guys has played 10, 15 years of domestic cricket and a very experienced team, at an international level. They clearly showed today that they can do that. I was always concerned going into the tournament that they were undercooked in terms of their preparation, and I think that showed in that first few games where they're a little bit rusty, and all the batsmen, they were lacking time in the middle. The last 2 games, totally different. The guys looked at ease, and we still saw some of the same mistakes. Aiden struggling to get past 30s, and Quinton, giving it away really after he scored his half centuries. But in general, I think South Africa would be very happy with that total. That wicket looks unbelievable to bat on. You just looked how the ball pinged off the bat in that first 10 overs. And I actually think South Africa, if they want to be critical, they could have got 20 more. They were pretty slow in that middle period, and I don't think they finished as well as they could have. But nonetheless, a good total on the board, and it's going to be a great match.
Yeah, let's just show you the innings progression as far as South Africa as the innings is concerned. They started really well. Quinton de Kock and of course Markram there in the first 10 overs going at a run rate of more than 7 an over. Then of course came the 11 to 20 when Nathan Lyon got them back, 2 wickets to his name, 49 runs. Then 21 to 30, like Albie just mentioned right now. They went a little slow after that. Van der Dussen also came in and played pretty slow at the start of his innings. And then of course 31 to 40, 75 runs, and 41 to 50, 80. We're also losing 4 wickets in the process. Brad, I know it's close to about 2 a.m. local time where you are right now, but could you put your head around why Mitchell Starc did not complete his overs, Behrendorff did not complete his overs, and Pat Cummins did not complete his overs? Total of 4 overs that these guys could have bowled.
Look, maybe it's something that Aaron Finch is just looking at for the future and just trying to nurse his fast bowling unit through. I thought as well, though, Aaron Finch has been outstanding throughout this tournament about managing his bowling unit, and maybe he just felt that Nathan Lyon had been successful, so Maxwell was the man to partner him today. I thought he used his bowling unit pretty well, but South Africa are actually too good. They played particularly well.
Fair point. Could you put your finger around it? Why?
No, well, we were listening in, seeing if there's any feedback from the commentators around injury or if people have been off the field. There was a little bit moment with Stark where it looked like he'd hurt something, but I think Hodge is probably right that they saw Maxwell as potentially needing to see him bowl as much as possible for a semi-final. But it's still an important game for Australia. So when you leave 4 overs on the table from Stark, Cummins and Behrendorff, who have been so good throughout this tournament, it is surprising.
Brad, a word on Nathan Lyon, of course. The 2 games prior to this wasn't really amongst too many wickets, but was economical. But today, of course, getting those 2 big wickets and bowled really well.
Yeah, and could have had a third as well. So, I thought he did a fantastic job, Nathan Lyon. And look, that's what you're going to get with an experienced campaigner that knows how to bowl in all sorts of conditions and in all sorts of, all parts of the game. So, nice for him to chime in with a couple of wickets. That'll do his confidence a load of good. And I think that the good thing is for him that we know he's a good bowler to left-handers, but he also did a good job against the right-handers as well.
Ajit, from an Aussie pace bowler perspective, the conditions in the pitch you saw, the way it was playing out, what do you suppose would have been the ideal length? And were they hitting it or not?
It's tough sometimes when it's such a good pitch and 2 batsmen sort of look as fluent as Markram and De Kock did at the moment. Maybe they were not as sharp with the lens today, but that's just picking on things. It's such a good surface. There was no lateral movement. There was nothing on offer in the air. And once 2 batsmen get after you, it's sometimes a little bit difficult. The one thing obviously which you touched upon, couldn't understand why Stark couldn't finish his 10, or even Cummins for that matter. I think Behrendorff sometimes struggles a little bit at the back end of the innings, so it's understandable. But Stark and Cummins, those 2 overs might have been handy. We'll find out soon if 325 would have been cut short. But South Africa were good on the day and tough conditions for bowlers. So Australia can hopefully show us that those are good conditions to bat.
There was a bit of turn in the pitch, of course. You reckon Australia missed out on not playing an extra spinner and someone like Zampa?
I don't think they can fit the extra spinner into their team. The way they're set up, it is all about that one spinner, and they get their balance from Stoinis and Maxwell. So they view Maxwell as their second spinner. I mean, Finch has even bowled in this tournament. So I don't think they're ever going to go down the 2-spinner route because it means leaving out one of their big fast bowlers. So this is the balance that they like and has worked really well for them in this tournament. And I think they're going to get a good wicket in the semi-final. And you'll see those fast bowlers step up. I think Ajit's right around. The length doesn't really matter for Stark because he just bowls full and attacks the stumps. Cummins bowls the same length no matter what. The only one probably is Behrendorff, is he looks to swing it, and if there's no swing and it's coming on so well, then he can be a little bit easier to hit than he normally is.
And Maxwell does a good enough job for them. I don't think, unless it's a rank turner, which it's unlikely to be at this stage of the World Cup, there's no point in playing 2 spinners. This is how Australia's played throughout the competition. This is how it's worked for them. And you look at the balance in their attack, and that provides them the best balance as far as the team's concerned.
Just from a Maxwell perspective, the way he's bowled today, if he can do that on a more consistent basis, will go a long way in really.
I think he has been though. I think he has been every time he's been called on. You can't rely on him every game to bowl 10 overs. That's not his job. But every time he's had an opportunity to bowl, he does a job for Australia, and that's what you expect of your 6th bowler. Anyway, so there are other 5 or 6 guys who are there to do the bowling job. He is when and if needed for Australia, and today was the day when they needed some help because it was such a good pitch, and it was much easier when the ball came onto the bat. So
he'll be hoping he doesn't have to bowl the 45th and 46th over. I think he is a good bowler, but that's not his forte. And he's bowled a lot in England, I think, in County Championship for Lancashire, I think it was this year. So he's in form, he knows conditions, he knows Old Trafford, so that's probably why they utilised him as well.
I know we've spoken a lot about Australia's bowling, but the story undoubtedly from that innings has to be the partnership between Faf du Plessis and Rassie van der Dussen, a 150-plus run partnership for South Africa. In the middle phase, there of course, here's their record in the World Cup. Faf du Plessis, 387 runs, an average of 64, strike rate of close to 90. Rassie Dussen, 311 runs, average of 62, strike rate of 90 as well. Albie, in particular on Rassie Dussen, if you look at his innings, you can break it up into two phases. First being the first phase, where he came in and he was pretty much batting at a strike rate of 50. And then came the next phase where he changed gears and really took on the Aussie bowlers.
Yeah, that's the brand of cricket Rassie plays, even at domestic level. It's sort of a old school brand of cricket, if you want to call it that. He gets himself in. He's often at a low strike rate, but once he gets through and gets in, he catches it up. Very much like, I don't want to compare him to Jacques Kallis, because Jacques Kallis is obviously a great, but very much the same way that Jacques Kallis sort of put his innings together. You can see he's not a guy that's going to give his wicket away when he's under pressure. He's one of the guys that rather will guts it through and try and catch up in the end. And he's been very good for South Africa in this World Cup. He's one of the guys that's been pretty consistent. And today I thought he played the perfect role, with Faf. Faf was sort of batting with ease. He was the guy who got the boundaries away, and Rassie just played that role and allowed Faf to bat like he did.
Albie, just tell us, with 7 overs to go, they sent in JP Dumini and you had Morris and Fekulukwayo in the dugout as well. That was an emotional decision, right?
Maybe, give JP a proper send-off. But if you look at his T20 stats, I think he's got one of the highest strike rates in the South African T20 setup. So it also means, he can hit the ball. But, if I had the choice or if I was the coach, I certainly would have sent in the bigger hitters. And that's why I feel we've got 320 on the board, but I thought, South Africa could easily gotten up to 350.
Right, it's time for a small little break here on ESPN Cricinfo Match Day. Lots more to talk about. We're going to talk about how Australia can chase down that 326. We'll be back in just a bit.
Earphones. Cricket's first brush with earphones didn't come with T20 and innovative broadcasting. In a 1999 World Cup game against India, South African captain Hansie Cronje and fast bowler Alan Donald took the field wearing earphones so coach Bob Woolmer could communicate with them. While it wasn't against any rule, the match referee asked them to discard them after discussions with the ICC.
Welcome back to ESPN Cricinfo Match Day. Australia require 326 if they are to beat South Africa in the final league game of the World Cup and thereby top the league phase of World Cup 2019. You were in studio, of course, with Ajit, Agarkar, Dan Vettori. We're also joined by Albie, Morkel and Brad Hodge. Albie, now, of course, given that you've got David Warner and there's Aaron Finch coming out both in sublime form, and of course South Africa has someone like an Imran Tahir, would you, of course, bowl him a few overs just right up top in first power play?
I don't think so. Now they'll probably give it a crack with a new ball. I think key for South Africa will be the two spinners though and how they use them. I wouldn't bowl him in the first few overs. There wasn't a lot of turn. Even though Imran, he doesn't have to, the wicket doesn't have to turn for him to be effective. I think the three of them, Imran Tahir, Shamsi and Dwayne Pretorius will be the key for South Africa. Pace off the ball, with the big square boundaries, it's tougher to get your boundaries there. And hopefully Chris and Kagiso can use the short ball also a bit more than Australians did. I don't think it's a wicket where you can just run in and bash away at lengths. You're going to have to be a little bit more clever. And key for South Africa will be the two spinners. That's why they've chosen them for this game. I know Faf in the past felt that the Australians don't play spin that well, especially in the middle periods, and we're going to see that today.
The reason I was asking that, Albie, is because if you take a look at his record, Imran Tahir versus Aaron Finch, then in 9 ODI innings, Tahir has got him out on 3 occasions. Brad, for you, of course, the key has to be David Warner and Aaron Finch, given that Australia still look a little shaky in the middle order.
Yeah, I wouldn't say shaky. I think that there's been some particularly good performances from Khawaja, Steve Smith. I guess our lower... I guess Maxwell and Stoinis probably need to step up to the plate when they get an opportunity, but it's all been Aaron Finch and Warner at the top with 500 plus runs, and usually when your top order get off to a good start, you're going to post a good total, so they're going to need that today. They'll be desperate to try and remove those two, the South Africans, and if they do, they're well on a good way to winning this game.
There's a bit of turn as well, Dan. So you've got 2 spinners, then you've got JP Duminy as well. So advantage South Africa in some sense?
I think they've got their selection right. It looks like a really balanced bowling lineup. Whenever you can fit 2 spinners into your lineup and it doesn't affect that balance, I think it's really important. And they'll be hoping it spins. Lyon got enough there to suggest that it will. And like Albie said, Tahir can be effective in any conditions. And I think they'll want to use Shamsi in an attacking role, and also when it's the most comfortable as well. I think you'll see Tahir do the hard yards, and then Shamsi will come on to new batsmen and try and be aggressive. Because Australia would have played against Shamsi a little bit, but not enough to get a real feel from him as a bowler.
Of course, chasing in this World Cup has been a bit of an issue, and as far as Old Trafford is concerned, we'll show you a record in this World Cup. 286 is the highest that's been chased in this World Cup. That was, of course, by West Indies. They made the highest, of course, 286. But for you, Dwayne Pretorius, of course, he was the pick of their bowlers in that last game, line and length, discipline, and you'd expect another performance from him. Yeah,
it'll be a little bit different. I think I agree with Albie. I don't think it's a pitch where you can just come and try and contain the batsman by bowling line and length. You might have to do a little bit different. You can see, I mean, that's his strength, to come and bowl line and length. Still make life difficult for Australia. Try and make them play the big shot and not give them something which is easily scoreable. So try and make, dot balls will increase the pressure. 326, 25 is a formidable total. They need some early wickets though. If they can, a lot of the runs have come from the top for Australia. So if they can get at least one, if not both, the openers, that'll help the rest of the bowlers coming later.
Finally, Albie, let me remind you that in the pre-show you had backed Australia in your prediction, sir. Are you changing your mind now?
No, I think the wicket's so good. Australian batsmen are batting with confidence, and I think it won't be a comfortable one. It's going to be a close game, but I still think Australia will win.
Brad, to you as well, final thoughts? How do you see this one playing out?
Well, look, I think South Africa are in good shape to take this one. I think their spinners will be dangerous on this surface. And anything over 300 is always a tough challenge. But Albie's right, the Australian batters are in good shape. I feel that the run of the green's going with the South Africans today. So I'll back against everyone else, actually.
I'm actually a bit surprised Albie is backing Australia. That will be a tough chase. I don't think we have seen big chases in this World Cup or successful chases in this World Cup. I think they'll have to bat really well to get to that score.
And for that, of course,
My prediction is Brad Hodge falls asleep. I think there's no way he's staying up, so I'll be interested in his words afterwards. But I think it's a great total. South Africa will feel confident around that, having 330 on the board, having that balanced bowling lineup. We could see Rabada at his best with those spinners, Tahir in his final game. So look for a great start from South Africa with the ball like they did with the bat as well.
And also makes the flight back home a lot more easier, relaxed. You can sleep, watch whatever you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sorry, that's me. Yeah, it makes it
fair enough. Dan Vettori, Ajit Agarkar, Brad Hodge and Albie Morkel, thank you so much for your time. As things stand, Australia, if they are to win their final league game of the World Cup, they need to chase down 326. We, of course, will see you after that chase. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.